there, this is Ross Izzard, and this is the Backcountry Fly Fishing Podcast, where we talk about the things that we hate in fly fishing. That's right, this is our second iteration of Complaint Corner. Last season, we talked about high-holing, which is one of the gravest of sins that you can inflict on a fly fishing river. And I got some interesting feedback on it. There were a lot of people who were happy that we talked about it because it is a big issue and one that deserves to be talked about quite a bit. And if you're still high-holing, please stop doing that. It's not cool. But also from some people who really kind of took it personally, to be honest with you. I got a couple of negative reviews and a couple of folks who said they didn't like it. And a couple of folks who said they're just going to high-hole me anyway, and what am I going to do about it? And that's interesting, right? I think that's something pretty interesting about our fly fishing culture. But if the hope from that was that I would not do another Complaint Corner and talk about the stuff that drives me crazy, it didn't work, because I'm going to talk about the next thing that drives me crazy, and that is spot burning. Okay, so let's kind of set the table with this. There's an ongoing discussion in the fly fishing community about the concept of spot burning and the related concept of what people call gatekeeping. Okay, so spot burning, just for anybody who somehow hasn't heard this term, refers to posting where you went fishing or telling lots of people about where you went fishing so that they know the specific spot where you went to catch a fish or take a picture or see a certain type of scenery or target a certain type of species or whatever. It is not necessarily, laying out generally where you fished, like, oh, I was in Western Colorado. It's not laying out like a region. In some cases, although this could be argued, it's not necessarily just naming a river, but it is specifically naming a spot, a section of river, a certain creek, a certain lake, whatever it might be, and then blasting that out to a whole bunch of people. That's usually, we're talking about social media here, so posting it on Reddit or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Pick your social media platform of choice. But in any case, it involves telling a whole bunch of people specifically where you went, right? And so when you see a spot burning post, it's usually somebody who's holding up a big, beautiful trout or something, and they say, caught this on the such and such river, and it was like 2 miles below the bridge, a great day with a black zebra midge. I mean, it's too much information. It's too specific. And it really has, I believe, a detrimental effect on not just fly fishing as a sport in general and fly fishers as individuals. We'll talk about that. But also, really, most importantly, on the places themselves and on the fish themselves. Because you are inviting a ton of pressure and attention in areas that probably don't need it, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, the counter to this is that somebody is going to come in and say, well, that's just gatekeeping. You're trying to lock people out of the best spots by not sharing this information. And to that, I say bullshit. I have very little patience for that particular line of argumentation, in part because nobody's locking anybody out of accessing these places, right? It's not like these things are being fenced off and then erased off of a map. It's not like there's no way to go and find them. It's not like they can't go there. It's just that they aren't being spoon-fed the information. Okay, so that's a very different thing. If you want to call that gatekeeping, and usually this is coming from somebody who really wants to know where you caught that damn cutthroat and you just won't tell them. If you want to call it gatekeeping, then fine, you can call it gatekeeping. But I'm okay with a certain level of gatekeeping when we're talking about protecting the sport, protecting the integrity and the sustainability of the resource and the places where we fish, and also just generally preserving the wild spirit of what we're doing and where we're going, and respecting the activity, respecting the water, and respecting the fish, by not blasting them out to the whole world every single time you catch a pretty fish in a pretty place. So call it gatekeeping if you want. Cool. I guess I'm a gatekeeper, but as you guys all know here, I don't ever really name specific rivers. Yes, I might name the really big ones that folks are generally aware of anyway. I might name very specific regions, like, oh, here we go again. We're gonna punch Deckers again, but like Deckers that everybody's heard of and they might go to. There are places that just aren't secrets, and then there are a lot of places that are not as well known. And it is important, I think, for us to be careful about how and when we talk about those places, which is why you never hear me mention specific river names, specific stream names, specific lake names. You don't see me put those in the Instagram posts or on Facebook or Reddit posts or anywhere else. I just don't do that. And in fact, I'm really careful with even posting pictures. I don't put location tags on them. In a lot of cases, will actually try to take pictures that are not of the most obvious scenery or landmarks around something. Because to be honest with you, I don't think you need to know exactly where I was fishing. If you know and you've been there, then you know, right? It's like if you know, you know. And if you don't know, then you can know. I'm not stopping you from knowing. I'm just not going to tell you. Sorry. So that's the layout. That's the preface for spot burning. But now I want to talk a little bit about why, more specifically, I have an issue with spot burning. And we touched on this a little bit already, but I'm going to hit 3 main points for why spot burning sucks in a little bit more detail here. The first one, and the most important one, as I already mentioned, is the places that we go and the fish that we are chasing. All right. So a lot of these places are not drive-up fisheries. These are not places that you can just pull up and, drive along the river and go, oh, that looks good, and then pull over and a pull off, jump out and start fishing. They're not really like that. I mean, some of the places that I go are remote enough that they probably only see maybe a dozen anglers a year. Some of them probably see less than that. I've definitely been to places that I don't think have been fished for a decade. I don't think anybody's been there. And I've been to other places that I'm not totally sure anybody has ever been to be completely honest with you. But even in places where they're only seeing a couple hundred anglers a year, so the sort of better known backcountry locations, or even 1,000 anglers a year, those are small numbers. And that's a good thing because these are wild places, right? You can't drive up to them. They're not right off the highway. You usually have to hike into them or use some type of specialized equipment like an ATV or a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get there. They're not easy to access, and they're really pretty pristine, which is to say that they have not really been touched by people. And the truth is, that's what makes them great, right? That's what makes these places special. It's why we go and seek them out, because we want to find something pure that has not been trampled on and broken down, where every stick's not already cracked and you don't have footprints all over the mud everywhere and plastic bottles and tin cans laying on the side of the bank. We don't want that. That's why we're out there. And because they've never been touched before, they're pretty fragile. I think a lot of people don't really realize how fragile these places are, especially when they're completely unmolested by humans. That can be true with streamside vegetation at a creek. It can be true, really, especially with like alpine tundra up at some of these high lakes. It can be true in meadow streams and meadow areas. It can be true on glacial streams that don't see a lot of traffic. I mean, these are really remarkably delicate places that are not really made or prepared to handle huge amounts of traffic and a whole bunch of people coming across them. And they are somewhat protected by the fact that they're hard to access. Not everybody's going to put in the work to get there, but not so much that you're not going to see people jump in and start accessing them and hitting them and pressuring them more often. And the same thing goes for the fish, right? So we're talking about preserving the environment and making sure that we're not opening the floodgates to a whole bunch of folks who are going to go up there and who probably aren't going to treat it right. I've mentioned this before, but in general, I have found that the people who don't want to do any work to discover their spots, the people who are like, just tell me where to fish, damn it, those are the people who are least likely to respect the places, right? Because if you put the work in and you're the kind of person that's like, I want to go find a wild place and explore because I appreciate it and I respect it, chances are that you're going to go there with a certain level of reverence and respect for the place. You're probably going to treat it right. You're going to practice leave no trace. You're going to be responsible about what you do when you're out there. But if somebody just spoon-fed that to you and was like, oh yeah, bro, go 2 miles that way, you're going to catch a sick cutty, you probably don't care. And you might do all sorts of stuff up there. You could start a fire. You could rip down wildflowers. You could trample over tundra that you shouldn't be walking on. You could leave trash. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can happen there. And I have found, you can say this is unfair if you want, but I have found that most of the people who really just want you to tell them so they don't have to do any work are the people who are also not going to do the work to be respectful of the place. Ditto for the fish, right? So, fish handling matters, especially in these places. Some of these fish have never been caught before. Some of them are pretty delicate, like these high alpine cutthroat. A lot of them are just not pressured at all. And having somebody go up there who is not going to take care of the fish and respect the resource, pulling them out of the water, putting them in the grass to take a picture, or holding them out for a minute straight, or picking them up by the lip while they're still on the hook, or whatever it might be, these places don't need that, right? These are fragile ecosystems. They usually have fairly limited fish populations just by nature of where they are. But even if they don't, the fish in these places don't really need that kind of pressure, right? We're out there to fish them because we like fishing unpressured water. And the fish are doing well. And there's really no reason for us to take fish who are fished for 12 times a year and make it so they are fished 1,000 times a year. That's not going to be good for the river, for the stream, for the lake, for the fish, for the environment, for anything else. It just isn't. And if you're sitting there going, well, 1,000 people aren't going to go there because, just not that many people are really paying attention to this stuff, you're not correct, right? So I get statistics just on my social media. And guys, keep in mind, I'm like a Z-list fly fishing celebrity, right? Like, I am not an important person in the world of fly fishing, but I still, my Instagram page gets probably 40,000 views a week. A Reddit post that I do about a fly fishing trip very routinely gets north of 40,000 or 50,000 views just in a few days. I've had a few that have broken 60,000 views on there. And that's a lot of eyeballs, right? You're talking about 60,000 people who potentially saw those posts from a random bald guy with a podcast about backcountry fly fishing. Imagine what happens when you start seeing people with bigger names and bigger brands blasting that out, or when you have a whole bunch of people blasting that out to big social networks with hashtags and a million other things. It is crazy to think that people believe that nobody sees those posts. They do, by the tens of thousands. And it's crazy to believe that some percentage of those people are not going to go out and hunt these places down if you give it to them that easily. They absolutely will. And it is going to have an impact on the water and the environment. So people that say that this doesn't matter, that pressure doesn't matter, it definitely does. It's going to affect the fish. It's going to affect the environment. Having that many people going through these wild places is eventually going to ruin the wild places. If you don't believe me, just go check out some of the real big name trout streams. And as you look around at that, guys fishing shoulder to shoulder with trash on the banks and boats everywhere and trucks parked all over the place, remember that that's what we don't want. We're in the backcountry because we don't want that experience. And you are absolutely going to start creating that experience if you don't pay attention to protecting these places. And here's the other thing about social media, guys. It's not just the post that you put out there, right? One of the most infuriating things for me is that I will take a bunch of pictures or videos and I'll post them and I'll share them because I like doing that. I like sharing the experiences. I mean, it's not really about likes or views for me, but it's about me sharing the places that I went to because they were special to me and I like to document them. And I will go out of my way to not mention the stream name or the lake name or where I was. I take pictures that are designed to sort of obscure where I was. And without fail, I will have somebody jump into the comment section and be like, oh, yeah, that's this place. And it's funny because very often they're not right. And then they'll have 6 or 7 other people come on and try to guess the place. And they're all wrong too. And now we've spot burned 6 or 7 places that I didn't even go to in the comment section of this post. Or maybe it is the right place and they blow it up. And that to me is the height of disrespect, right? I clearly did not want to share that information. And you have come on and commented for the sole purpose of sharing that information anyway to what? Stick it to me? Show me who's boss? Teach me to not be a dirty gatekeeper? Jack up? I mean, I don't know why you would do that. There's really no reason to do that other than to say screw you to whoever went there and posted the content. And it has the same detrimental effects as posting it yourself because guess what? A lot of those 50,000 people, they're reading the comments. And so even though I did my part, you've now gone up there and blown up the spot just as a commenter. So if you want to ask, just send me a DM. man, like DM me and be like, hey, is that such and such? And I'll tell you, honestly, like man to man, person to person, yes, I'll answer your question. But don't do it out on a public forum or a public post like that where everybody in the world sees it. That just isn't helpful. It's not. It's not cool. It's kind of a shitty thing to do, and it's definitely not helpful. And it's absolutely still spot burning, even if you weren't the guy who made the post. So stop that. Stop doing it. Not okay. And that kind of leads me to the second point, which is the experience, right? So, yes, it's mostly about protecting the natural places and the fish. It is. And I don't, your feelings are less important to me than the well being of those places. But on a more selfish note, it also ruins the experience, right? I mean, we are out there to fish because we don't want to fish crowded water. Okay. Anybody can go jump on a float and just run down a big name river. Anybody can drive up the road and pull off the side and fish shoulder to shoulder with 10 other guys in a river that everybody's heard of. Everybody knows about big tailwaters and trophy trout fisheries and everything else like that. Fine. But most of us are doing this backcountry fly fishing thing because we want to get away from that. We want to get away from it because we enjoy fishing for less pressured fish who don't have a PhD in everything not to eat, and they need like a size 26 midge to even think about it for 2 seconds. We want to go to places where we don't have another guy casting across our line or crowding our spot or high-holing us or whatever. We don't want trucks rumbling down the road every 5 minutes or somebody blaring a speakerphone or music on a Bluetooth speaker or whatever. We want to go out there to find peace and solitude and connection with nature and a fly fishing experience that is more grounded in the natural beauty and the rhythm and the quiet of the places that we're going to. And bringing in a whole bunch of people to those places is not going to do that for you. And let me tell you from experience, there are a few places I used to fish that were pretty backcountry. I mean, we're talking 3 or 4 mile hikes in, but close enough to town that other people would probably make a shot at them. I never said a word about them, but somebody did. And suddenly it goes from me being the only guy in there, or maybe on an off day, I might see one other guy and we nod at each other and quietly carry on with our business, to now I'm seeing 10 or 15 guys in that river, right? There's one particular winter fishery that I'm thinking of that nobody used to go to. You used to be able to get out there and have a mile of water to yourself. Now you're lucky if you get 15 feet of water to yourself. And so for all the folks who say, well, that's gatekeeping, well, maybe, but I don't really like having that experience, right? I don't. And as a result, I just don't go to those places anymore. And a lot of people don't go to those places anymore because they're a mess and they're crowded and they're pressured and it just takes something out of it for me. And when you spot burn, when you lay something out there and spoon feed it to them and say, yes, I was at this particular creek at this bend, and that's where I caught that fish, you are 100% going to create a situation where whatever solitude you were finding there, whatever experience you were finding there, is not going to be there anymore. Sooner or later, you keep doing that. People are going to show up. You're going to roll up to your favorite spot, and you're going to find a guy standing right in it. And then you're going to find a guy standing in the next spot, and the next spot, and the next spot. And pretty soon you're going to wonder what the hell you're doing hiking all these miles to try to fight for water and engage in combat fishing that you could have done 10 minutes from home, 5 feet from your truck. It ruins the experience. That's number 2. Number 3 is it ruins you as an angler. And I should be careful with this one because I think some people might get kind of mad about it. But I think that the coolest thing about fly fishing, the thing that makes it different from regular fishing or other types of fishing, I should say, is that it really is about mastery. It's about skill. It's about learning. It's about development. It's a harder form of fishing than most other forms of fishing. It just is. It's a little bit more complicated. It's more technical. Is it rocket science? No, it's not rocket science. Let's be real. Fly fishing is still fishing. But it is a different thing. And I think that especially for those of us who engage in fly fishing long term, we eventually get good enough at it that the challenge starts to come and the growth and development starts to come, not necessarily from the fishing itself, but from going out and exploring. And for me, that's actually the most important part of the sport. It's why I love it so much. If I were just going to go down the road and fish the big name tailwater by my house, I don't think I'd fly fish for very long, to be honest, and certainly not very often. I might go out a few times a year, but that just isn't very interesting to me. Finding places, researching places, hiking to places, learning about places, experiencing places, that is the challenge and the experience for me that I am searching for when I'm doing this backcountry fly fishing thing. And that's all about earning your spots. Okay. So, let's talk about alpine lakes for a second. Okay. There are 2,000 alpine lakes just in Colorado alone, tens of thousands across the Western US. Some of them have great fish populations. Some of them don't. Some of them have names. Some of them don't. Some of them have trails to them. Some of them don't. And learning about those lakes and getting to those lakes is a really fun part of the game for me. There are books written about them, right? And we've actually talked about a couple of books here on the podcast where you can go out and find somebody who's been fishing for 50 years and they decided to write down an amalgamation of, the 800 high lakes that they've fished in Colorado. Okay, fine. It's out there in a book. Other people write blog posts. Other people put out information on forums or talk about it. And even though those are, to some extent, a form of spot burning, they still require at least a little bit of effort on your part, right? They're going to require you to sit down and find a book and actually read a book about the places. They're going to require you to pull out a map and look at where the places are. They're going to require you to sit down and do some research about which trailhead you need to use and how to access these places and how hard the hike's going to be and what equipment you might need and the best time of year and elevation, blah, 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 blah. And there is something really special about finding a place, discovering it, however you discover it, right? Not by having somebody just spoon feed it to you and be like, hey, bro, you should go to such and such lake because it's awesome, or such and such river because it's awesome. But instead being like, I want to get out and explore this particular area. For me, it's a wilderness area every summer. You can decide how you want to do it, but finding an area, pulling out a map and being like, okay, I want to hit that. And I want to go to that lake. And I know because the lake has fish in it, there must be fish in the creek. And I want to fish that. And then there's this other lake in the chain, and researching that and planning it so that you are laying out a route, finding the trail, bringing your stuff, maybe backpacking, maybe camping, whatever it might be. It requires work and it requires effort and it requires planning. And that means that you're earning the spot. So when you get to that lake, it's not just, or river or stream or whatever, it's not like you're just showing up and you're like, oh, yep, it's right where Peter said it was going to be. Would you look at that? You're showing up and you're like, man, I got here. I found this place. I researched this place. I looked at it on a map. I made all the decisions. I did all the things that had to happen to show up and get here. And that's a huge sense of accomplishment because you earned it. And because you earned it, you can really appreciate it. And I think you are more likely to respect it as well as yourself, right? Like there's a certain level of self-respect that comes along with earning your spots by learning the landscape around you, learning an area around you, learning how to look at a topographic map, learning how to interpret watersheds, pulling in data from a whole bunch of different people and sources and synthesizing that into something that looks like a game plan. That's a huge development opportunity for you as an angler because it will help you understand watersheds and areas and elevation and species better than you ever have before. Especially the more you do it, you start stacking up knowledge and experience that just, it's a game changer for you. But also personally, right? From a personal development standpoint, and I've said this before, the big thing that we're doing out there is about mastery. And mastery is about personal development. It's about growth and learning to get better at something that you care about. Well, one of those things is understanding waterways and how to access waterways and which type of waterways hold fish and when you go there and how you get there and everything else. That's part of it. And learning that you can do that you can take a plan from, conceptualization to execution to catching the fish to coming back home safely. There's just no better feeling than that. That's what this backcountry fly fishing game is all about. And man, if you take that out of the equation and just start feeding people this stuff on silver spoons, it's not the same thing. It cheapens the experience for them. It worsens the experience for everybody else. And it's detrimental to the environment. There's just no reason to spot burn. So those are my 3 reasons. Look, if you want to tell your grandpa Bob about a certain lake you went to, cool. You want to tell your best friend about a really awesome stream you went to, fine. But just be really aware that when you are going out onto any type of public forum, stuff on the internet lives forever, and social media is a crazy powerful tool. So if you're going to go out there and put these places on blast, understand that they are not going to remain the same places for very long. And I really do believe that one day you're going to come to regret that decision, because whatever help you're providing to that angler in that particular moment, or those 50,000 anglers that you blasted it out to, it's not worth it, right? Those people can find the information another way. They can do the work to find these places, and that will protect the experience and the place for others for many years to come. So that's it, guys. There's my complaint corner about spot burning. I am sure we will have more to talk about on this subject in the future. I'm sure there are plenty of you who disagree. Feel free to shoot me a note if you would like to. I'm happy to talk about it, with the understanding that I'm unlikely to change my opinion on this one, but I'm still happy to chat with you. Feel free to shoot me a note. If you're loving the show, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. That really does help. If you leave less than a 5-star review, I mean, okay, it's cool that you're being honest, but at least tell me what I could do better, because I'd love to learn. Speaking of self-development. And if you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to ping me on Facebook, on Instagram, or just shoot me a note at backcountryflyfishingpodcast@gmail.com. So I hope you're doing really well. I hope you're hitting some really awesome spots. I hope you're not telling anybody other than maybe your mom about those awesome spots. And I hope that you were enjoying August in backcountry fly fishing. We've really only got about a month of this left before winter starts rolling in the high country. So enjoy it while you've got it. Get out there, hit it hard, and I'll see you back here next week. Till next time, this is Ross, and maybe I'll see you out there. But hopefully it's just you and not like 100 other people.